I'll never forget the first time I heard the whisper. She tried to pay with fake money. My head snapped up so fast, I nearly spilled my drink. Fake money. At the Homeowners Association Clubhouse. No way. But the look on people's faces that night, half shock, half smug satisfaction, told me this wasn't just another rumor about Karen. This time, she'd gone too far. The clubhouse was buzzing. The low hum of conversation bouncing against the echo of clinking wine glasses and muffled laughter. We were supposed to be celebrating the summer fundraiser. Raffles. Catered food. Community spirit. Instead, the air was thick. Heavy. Like everyone was waiting for the other shoe to drop. And oh, it did. Karen. The queen bee of drama. The self-appointed Homeowners Association enforcer. The one who patrolled lawns with a tape measure and fined people for leaving trash bins out an hour too long. She strutted in that night like she owned the place. Heels clacking against the tile. Hair sprayed stiff enough to survive a hurricane. She carried herself with that smug smile. The kind that makes your stomach turn. But when she reached the raffle table, that's when the storm hit. "Excuse me." The treasurer, Mrs. Hall, said, holding a bill up to the light. Her voice trembled just enough to draw eyes. "This doesn't look right." Karen waved her manicured hand dismissively. "Oh, please. It's a $100 bill. What's the big deal? Are we really doing this?" I swear, the entire room went silent. You could almost hear the crackle of the fluorescent lights overhead. "Ma'am, Mrs. Hall tried again. This feels off. I think it's counterfeit." That's when Karen's voice rose, sharp enough to slice glass. "Counterfeit? Are you accusing me of breaking the law? In front of all these people? How dare you?" Oh boy, that tone. That indignant, screechy pitch. The kind that makes your skin crawl. People shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some hiding smirks, others wide-eyed. And then Karen did what Karen always did. She doubled down. "You know what this is?" She snapped. "This is harassment. You've been after me since day one. You're just jealous. Jealous of my success. Jealous of my family. Jealous of me." God, that woman loved being the victim. But here's the thing, Mrs. Hall didn't back down. For once, someone stood tall against the tidal wave of Karen's entitlement. She quietly set the bill aside and whispered to her husband. Within 10 minutes, 2 uniformed officers walked through the clubhouse doors. And let me tell you, the sound of those boots on the tile. Boom, boom, boom. It was like a drumbeat of justice marching straight toward Karen. Her face drained of color. She tried to laugh it off. Loud and brittle. The way people do when they know they're caught. "Oh, for heaven's sake. This is ridiculous. It's cash. Real cash. My husband runs a business. Sometimes he has unusual bills. But counterfeit. Really?" The officer didn't flinch. He took the bill, held it up to the light, then ran his fingers across it with practiced precision. A low whistle escaped his lips. "Yeah, this is fake. Ma'am, do you have any more of these on you?" The room exploded with murmurs. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered. "I knew it. I knew she was shady." Karen's hands fluttered like trapped birds. She stammered. No, of course not. That must have been a mistake. Just one bill. That's it. I swear." But then, the twist. The officer asked her to hand over her purse. And inside, a neat little stack. 10 more hundreds. Every single one counterfeit. The gasp that rippled through that room. It was cinematic. Karen's shriek pierced the air. "This is a setup. Somebody planted those in my purse. Do you people not see what's happening? This is a witch hunt." I swear, my jaw hit the floor. A witch hunt. Lady, you just got caught red-handed trying to buy raffle tickets with Monopoly money. The officers exchanged a look and the taller one spoke into his radio. Yeah, we'll need backup. Suspected counterfeiting. Multiple bills found. Karen's mask cracked then. That confident smirk melted into sheer panic. She started pacing, hands trembling, voice breaking in half. Wait, you can't. This isn't fair. You don't understand. I'm on the homeowners association board. I run this neighborhood. Do you know who I am? God, the entitlement. You could almost taste it in the air. But the officer didn't blink. Yes, ma'am. And now we also know what you've been up to. You're under investigation for possession of counterfeit currency. Felony offense. The word felony hit the room like a thunderclap. People actually gasped. Someone dropped their glass and it shattered on the floor. The tension, the disbelief, the sheer electricity of that moment. It was something you could feel in your bones. Karen's knees buckled and for a second, I thought she might faint. But then, oh no, she found her second wind. Her final attempt to wriggle out of accountability. She jabbed a finger toward Mrs. Hall. Her voice a shrill, cracked scream. This is your fault. You've hated me for years. You planted this, didn't you? Admit it. Admit it. Mrs. Hall, bless her, didn't even raise her voice. She just said, calm and steady, no, Karen, you did this to yourself. And that, God help me, that line landed harder than the cops ever could. By then, the backup had arrived. 2 more officers came in and the sound of those cuffs clicking shut around Karen's wrists. It was like the final note of a symphony. Poetic. Sharp. Beautiful. She thrashed. Of course. Cried out. You can't do this. This isn't real. It's a mistake. A terrible mistake. I'll sue every last one of you. Her voice cracked, echoing off the walls as neighbors watched. Some openly recording on their phones. Others whispering gleefully. And here's the kicker. As they walked her out, she spotted me near the doorway. Her eyes locked on mine. Wild. Desperate. Like I was supposed to save her. Tell them. She shrieked. Tell them I wouldn't do this. You know me. I almost laughed. Know her. I knew her. We all did. That's why nobody said a word in her defense. The night ended with a hush that settled over the clubhouse like dust after an explosion. People lingered in small clusters, whispering, replaying every second of what they just witnessed. Someone muttered, "Karma's a bitch." Someone else said, "I hope she rots in jail." And me, I just sat back, staring at the empty doorway where Karen had been dragged out, feeling that strange mix of disbelief and satisfaction. Relief, even, because for once, the neighborhood bully had been taken down not by another fine, not by another screaming match, but by her own damn greed. But oh, just when we thought it was over, the twist came days later. Turns out, the police traced the bills back further. Not only had Karen been trying to pass counterfeit at the fundraiser, but she'd been circulating them around town, at local shops, restaurants, even paying one poor teenager who mowed her lawn. That's not just embarrassing. That's criminal. And the final blow. Her husband filed for divorce the following week. Apparently, he'd suspected something was off. But this was the nail in the coffin. Their perfect facade shattered overnight. So yeah, homeowners association Karen thought she could outsmart everyone. Thought she could bully, cheat and scheme her way through life. But when the lights were brightest, when all eyes were on her, her empire crumbled. And standing there in the aftermath, hearing the faint echo of those cuffs snapping shut, I couldn't help but whisper to myself, justice sounds good. It was 2:17 a.m. when I heard the soft metallic clink of something outside my garage. Not a raccoon. Not wind. No, this was deliberate. Focused. Like someone easing a lock open. I sat up in bed, heart thudding. Again, Another HOA stunt? I live in a gated community that loves to pretend it's the damn Pentagon. And our HOA president Karen Fletchley has taken it to DEFCON 1 ever since I refused to trim my rose bush exactly 3 inches below mailbox height. God forbid the mailman see petals. I slipped out of bed, grabbed my phone and a low-light camera from the dresser, and Yesme Glock, just in case. But mostly, I was curious, because I'd heard the rumors. People said Karen had been taking matters into her own hands lately. Someone's backyard gnome collection mysteriously disappeared. Another guy found anonymous notes threatening fines for having a bird feeder. But tactical gear, breaking and entering, I crept to the front window. No way. There she was. Full-on camo, tactical vest, a headset with a dangling mic like she was waiting for orders from SEAL Team 6. And get this, she had night vision goggles. Not even cheap ones. Looked military grade. I had to stifle a laugh. But then she pulled out a crowbar. My damn crowbar. From my garage rack, which she must have accessed last week when she accidentally dropped off the wrong newsletter and asked to use the bathroom. Okay, that was it. I turned on my internal camera feed. She was in, silent, methodical, like she was looking for evidence. Of what? HOA violations? Dust on my toolboxes? An expired fire extinguisher? I hit record. Karen crouched by my workbench, rummaging through drawers. I watched her pull out my folder labeled training schedules, thinking she'd found a smoking gun. Lady, that's my workout log. I had enough. I cracked open the garage door just an inch and whispered, "Freeze!" She flinched so hard she hit her head on the bench lamp. Clang. "What the hell? Who's there?" she hissed. I stepped into the faint moonlight from the driveway, holding nothing but the camera and my badge. "You just broke into a federal trainer's garage. Guess what I do for a living, Karen?" Her face contorted, trying to recover her fake authority. This is a community inspection. At 2 a.m.? With stolen tools? Wearing night vision. I had probable cause. I nearly choked on a laugh. You're not a cop, Karen. You're not even Neighborhood Watch. You're an overglorified newsletter stapler with a personal vendetta and a weird camo fetish. She stood up, puffed her chest, and barked. "I'm going to write you up for threatening a board member." I tilted my head. "Threatening? Nah, I'm not threatening." I pointed at the camera. "I'm documenting. And you, ma'am, just walked into a felony. Trespassing. Theft. Tampering with personal documents. I train SWAT teams to breach and clear. You think I don't have surveillance?" She froze. That's when my wife half awake walked in and gasped, "Honey, why is Karen in full camo next to your drill press?" Karen bolted. Clack, clack, clack. Her tactical boots smacked the pavement as she sprinted like a raccoon with a sandwich. Except raccoons don't usually scream. I know my rights. I didn't chase her. I didn't have to. The next morning, I uploaded everything to the neighborhood group page unedited. I didn't say a word, just titled the video, "Your HOA President, 2:17 a.m. Within hours, the comments exploded. Why is she wearing military gear? She was in my backyard last week. That's my missing socket set. This is a crime, not an HOA visit. It got to the point where even the vice president of the HOA came to my house, white as a ghost, and said, "We didn't authorize that. None of us knew." Oh, but the twist? The twist? Turns out Karen had formed an auxiliary enforcement team. Just her and her sister in Lawand. They'd been secretly patrolling homes at night. She called it Operation Neighborhood Pride. Yeah. That operation had a full binder, with photos, notes, even Google Maps routes. She'd been planning to have my house cited for failure to comply with uniform garage standards, because I painted one cabinet navy blue. So I turned it all in. Binder, footage, statement, everything went to the cops. You could feel the tension in the community after that. People whispered in driveways. Kids stopped riding their bikes past her house. And one morning, I walked outside to grab the paper and saw her, sitting on her front steps. No camo, no clipboard, just a stiff HOA polo shirt and a look of utter defeat. She stood up, walked over. I tensed. You think you're clever, huh? She muttered. I just raised a brow. You embarrassed me. Made me look like some criminal. I blinked. You are one. Silence. She opened her mouth to argue but then saw the little red light still flashing from the porch cam behind me. She froze. You recorded this too? Always, I said. Standard training. She stormed off, spitting curses under her breath. And not a week later, we got a letter from the HOA board. Karen had resigned. Effective immediately. But here's the bitter part, because life's rarely just sweet justice and victory laps. A few months later, we found out she was running for city council in the neighboring district, rebranding herself as a public safety advocate. You know what she put on her flyer? Experienced in community enforcement. Passionate about local order. I stared at it, dumbfounded. You have got to be kidding me. Still, every time I open my garage now, I pause. Because somewhere, out there, I swear I hear a faint voice whispering. 3 inches below the mailbox. I wish I could say that was the last I heard of Karen Fletchley. But nope. 3 weeks after she resigned and disappeared from our block, I got served. A lawsuit. She was suing me for defamation of character and emotional distress, claiming I'd intentionally humiliated her by posting the video online. Never mind that it was all true. Never mind that she broke into my garage, in the middle of the damn night, wearing night vision goggles. Unbelievable. My lawyer took one look at the footage, the screenshots, the timestamped HOA emails, and just laughed. Actually laughed out loud in the middle of his office. This is textbook self-incrimination, he said. If anything, she's lucky you didn't sue her first. And he was right. I had every legal reason to press charges. Hell, the cops were this close to filing. But she made a deal: resign from the HOA, stay off my property, and go quietly. But Karen doesn't go quietly, does she? Her court complaint even included phrases like stealth community service and unofficial inspection duty. It was like she thought she was a damn secret agent working for Homeland Security, not the president of a cul-de-sac book club. I showed up to court with the flash drive. Judge took one look at the video, read her Operation Neighborhood Pride notes, and ruled against her in under 10 minutes. Dismissed with prejudice. And get this, I got awarded attorney's fees. That's right. Karen had to pay me. I walked out of that courtroom lighter than air. But the cherry on top. 2 months later, I caught wind of her city council campaign collapsing. Apparently, Summonino Clue, who leaked her auxiliary enforcement binder to a local podcast. It blew up on Twitter. Memes everywhere. Her in camo. Her with night vision. Her whispering into a headset like she was calling in a drone strike over a lawn flamingo. One post read, Karen went full FBI over a blue cabinet. Never go full FBI. She withdrew her campaign the same week. Cited health reasons. Now every Halloween, my neighbors and I hang a plastic mannequin in camo behind a bush with a fake clipboard and a tiny HOA badge. We call her Ghost of Violations Past. Even the kids are in on it. And me? I still train SWAT. Still mow my lawn how I like. Still keep my cabinets navy blue, just to spite her memory. But you better believe I installed a second motion camera in the garage just in case the HOA ever goes paramilitary again. Oh, and if you enjoyed this story of wild neighborhood justice and next-level lawsuit karma, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more real-life chaos every week.
It started with a knock I'll never forget. 3 loud bangs like someone was trying to punch their way through my front door. I swung it open and there she was, Karen. Arms crossed, sunglasses too big for her face, and that trademark sneer like she just smelled a fart. You've got a suspicious structure in your backyard, she announced, voice sharp like a blade. And I've already filed a report with the HOA and local law enforcement. Wait, what? I blinked, trying to process what this banshee of a woman was talking about. My shed? You're calling the cops over a damn tool shed. She raised her chin, looking entirely too proud of herself. It doesn't match the community guidelines. Could be anything. Meth lab. Hidden bunker. Illegal farming. I've watched Breaking Bad. I know what sheds are used for. God help me. Now let me back up a bit. I'm a 38-year-old guy who moved into this overly manicured, beige cookie-cutter HOA neighborhood about a year ago after leaving federal service. I served with the DEA, that DEA. I worked narcotics enforcement for 12 years and retired with enough stress to last a lifetime. Bought this peaceful little house thinking I could finally grow some tomatoes, grill in peace, and maybe build a small shed for my gardening tools and personal projects. Nothing illegal. Nothing shady. Just solitude. But solitude was never an option with Karen living 2 houses down. She was the self-appointed compliance queen of our HOA, didn't even sit on the board, yet acted like she was the board. She reported people for mismatched fence paint, holiday decorations, wind chimes that were too melodic. I wish I were joking. When I first installed my shed, a simple, brown structure with a shingled roof and reinforced walls, I didn't think it'd cause a fuss. But the moment it went up, Karen's eyes locked onto it like a predator spotting its prey. And now apparently she'd escalated. The cops didn't come that first day, but her HOA complaint triggered an official property notice. I was told I'd need to verify the contents and purpose of the outbuilding to ensure neighborhood safety. Can you believe that? Neighborhood safety. Over a shed that housed some lawn fertilizer and antique boxes I hadn't unpacked since retirement. That would have been annoying enough. But Karen wasn't finished. Oh no. The very next day, I came home to find 2 strangers poking around my backyard, city inspectors, following up on a tip from a concerned resident. One of them actually pulled out a notepad and said, "We were told this might be a concealed narcotics operation." I laughed out loud. That was the moment I realized what Karen had done. She'd not only lied, she'd gone full tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist on me. She weaponized the system because she didn't like my shed's color or placement or God knows what else. But here's the part Karen didn't know. This suspicious structure? It was built by former DEA agents. See, I didn't just retire and disappear. I teamed up with a couple of my old squad buddies, men with decades of tactical experience, and we decided to start a side business doing consultancy and private tactical training for law enforcement teams. The shed was actually reinforced because we occasionally ran drills there, simulated breach entries, evidence cataloging, gear maintenance. Nothing crazy. Nothing illegal. But everything completely off Karen's radar until she decided to poke the hornet's nest. I could have just explained the whole thing to the HOA and city inspectors, cleared it up with paperwork, smiled, nodded, played nice. But, no. Something in me snapped that day. I'd spent years breaking down the doors of actual criminals, cartels, and meth heads. I was done being polite to people who used bureaucracy as a weapon. I wasn't going to let Karen paint me as some suburban Walter White just because she needed a hobby. So I made a call. 3 days later, a few of my buddies showed up quiet. No badges, no guns, just professionals with intense stares and arms folded like bouncers at the gates of hell. We staged a little training session. Nothing too dramatic. Just enough tactical gear and acronyms to scare the hell out of anyone snooping over the fence. And Karen snooped. I caught her peeking through the slats of my fence that evening, phone up, snapping pictures, whispering like she was narrating for Dateline NBC. They're wearing vests. I think they're loading something. Oh my God, is that a sniper case? The next morning it happened. Flashing lights. Loudspeaker. Police cruisers everywhere. A full-on response team pulled up at 7:12 a.m. They weren't here for a warrant, they were responding to a call about domestic terrorism. Karen had told 911 that militia-looking men were arming up in my backyard and possibly constructing a bomb shelter. Let that sink in. She told them I was building a bomb shelter with armed militants in a suburb with 3 Starbucks within walking distance. The best part? One of the responding officers had trained with me. He stepped out, recognized me immediately, and burst out laughing. "Are you serious?" he said loud enough for the other officers and Karen to hear. "This is DA Scott's house. You've got to be kidding me." Karen was standing on the sidewalk in her robe and slippers, arms waving dramatically, screaming. "He has combat men in there. They were doing drills. I heard foreign accents." The officer turned toward her, still chuckling. "Ma'am, you're reporting DA veterans doing a private training session on private property with no weapons drawn. You understand this is not a crime, right?" "But it looked criminal," she shrieked. That's when the twist hit her like a sack of bricks. See, Karen had given a false report of terrorism, Not once but twice, and this time it was to federal law enforcement. Guess who else I called that week? That's right, my contact at the Department of Homeland Security, just to give them a heads up in case Karen escalated further. And boy did she. Within an hour, Karen was placed in handcuffs. Not aggressively, no one roughed her up. But the look on her face as two agents read her the formal charge of filing a false report involving threats to national security infrastructure was chef's kiss. She wailed like a soap opera villain. "This is a mistake. I'm the victim. That shed isn't even HOA approved." Someone nearby muttered, "Lady, it's a shed, not a missile silo." I didn't even need to say a word. I just stood there in my backyard sipping my coffee, watching the whole thing unfold like it was divine retribution. You know that deep, satisfied sigh? The kind you let out after a 10-hour flight when you finally take your shoes off and sink into the couch? That was me. And Karen? She was escorted into the back of a federal SUV, while still screaming about code violations. Karen didn't go quietly. As the SUV pulled away, she was still yelling from behind the window something about civil rights, and how she was going to sue everyone from me to the HOA to the state itself. But none of that mattered anymore. The moment she filed a false federal report, Weish stepped out of her HOA turf war and into felony territory. And trust me, the DA doesn't play softball when you call them militiamen with bomb-making intentions for fun. The fallout? Oh, it was glorious. Word spread fast through the neighborhood. People who used to nod politely at Karen now crossed the street to avoid her. A few even came by with beer and popcorn to ask what really went down. One older neighbor clapped me on the shoulder and said, "We always knew she'd mess with the wrong person someday. Didn't expect it'd be someone with federal connections though. Nice." Her court date was scheduled 3 weeks later. But it didn't stop there. See, her arrest became public record. And the HOA board, tired of her constant drama, finally took a stand. She was officially banned from filing future complaints on behalf of the HOA. And her access to the community app was revoked. No more Karen rants about suspicious wind chimes or overgrown daisies ever again. But the cherry on top? I filed a lawsuit for defamation and emotional distress, and I wasn't alone. 2 of my DA friends who were here during her terrorist accusation did the same. Turns out, falsely accusing decorated veterans of domestic terrorism doesn't just get you arrested. It gets you served. Her lawyer tried to downplay it, but the judge didn't buy the concerned citizen routine. Karen ended up settling. Quietly. Expensively. Last I heard, she put her house on the market probably to cover legal fees, and moved out of state. Somewhere with fewer sheds, I hope. As for me, I rebuilt the shed. Bigger. Better. And yes, fully HOA compliant just to be petty. If you enjoyed this wild ride of karma, tactical takedowns, and HOA chaos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove sometimes a good lawsuit is the best revenge.
I never thought living in a quiet suburb would turn into a full-on nightmare. But here I was, standing outside my own garage, mouth hanging open in disbelief as Karen, yes, that Karen from the HOA, stormed off, leaving my garage door wide open and my life upside down. She thinks my garage is some kind of illegal lab? Seriously? I gasped, hands trembling, heart pounding like a drum in my chest. How did it even get this bad? It all started with a little misunderstanding, or so I thought. I mean, who wouldn't want a tidy, well-organized garage, right? But apparently, Karen saw my neatly stacked shelves of gardening supplies, some paint cans, and my DIY woodworking tools, and immediately jumped to conclusions. "This is dangerous. It's a hazard, a chemical lab," she declared in that shrill voice that makes you want to cover your ears. I tried to explain calmly. God knows I tried, but Karen was already dialed into full Karen mode. No reasoning, no listening. Just the usual self-righteous tirade about neighborhood safety and protecting our property values. And then, in a move that felt like a bad episode of a reality show, she marched straight into my garage, threw open the shelves, and started tossing things out like she was conducting a raid. I watched helplessly as years of careful organization, tools I'd collected since I was a kid, and my late grandfather's old toolbox were dumped onto the driveway. Paint spilled on the concrete with a sickening splat, bright red, just like my blood pressure skyrocketing. "Karen, stop. You don't have the right," I shouted, but she just shot me a glare that could freeze hell over. Neighbors gathered, whispering, pointing fingers, but no one dared to intervene. Everyone knew Karen's reputation. She was the self-appointed sheriff of the HOA, the queen of petty power trips. And she had, just as I was about to lose it completely, screaming out my frustration, the unmistakable wail of a fire truck cut through the summer air. What? Why was the fire department here? I blinked, then looked back at the chaos. Turns out, Karen had called them herself, claiming she smelled toxic. The firemen jumped out, helmets gleaming, hoses ready. One of them flashed a look of mild confusion, then glanced at the splattered paint and the disheveled mess. "Sir, are you conducting any hazardous chemical activities here?" he asked, voice professional but clearly skeptical. "No, no way. Just woodworking and some home projects," I stammered, feeling the weight of every eye on me. Karen, on the other hand, looked positively smug, until she suddenly swayed and, before anyone could catch her, she collapsed to the ground with a loud thud. "Oh my God!" someone shouted. The fireman rushed to her side, checking her pulse. She was pale as a ghost, lips trembling. The irony wasn't lost on me. Karen, who made a fuss about safety and order, now lying unconscious because she couldn't handle the pressure of her own overreach. They called an ambulance, and Karen was carted off with neighbors buzzing, some quietly snickering. I couldn't help but let out a shaky laugh, the tension finally breaking like a dam. "Well, that's one way to cool off," I muttered under my breath. But this wasn't the end of the story, not by a long shot. In the days that followed, the HOA held an emergency meeting. Guess who was not there? Yep, our fearless Karen, probably still nursing her bruised ego and some embarrassing headaches. Instead, I stood up in front of the group, holding my grandfather's battered toolbox like a trophy. "This is not a lab," I said firmly. "It's my garage. It's my space. And what Karen did, it's vandalism." The room was silent for a moment, then murmurs started. Even some of Karen's usual allies looked uneasy. The truth was obvious even to them. Karen's wild accusations, her reckless actions, they'd gone too far. Later, I discovered that the fire department had filed a report noting no hazardous materials and no violation of any safety codes. That was the nail in the coffin for Karen's reign of terror. The HOA board voted to censure her and demanded she apologize, not just to me, but to the entire neighborhood for the drama and fear she stirred up. And here's the kicker: Karen, the self-styled protector, ended up being the one who brought the most chaos. Her obsession with control blinded her to reason, and now she was paying the price. But the real twist? Turns out the paint I spilled on the driveway wasn't just any paint. It was a rare, custom blend I'd been working on for months, a gift for my wife's upcoming art show. The bright red splatter, while accidental, ended up looking like a bold splash of creativity on the dull gray concrete. Neighbors started snapping photos, sharing them online with captions like, "Karen's rage turned into art." Suddenly, my ruined garage was the talk of the town for all the right reasons. What Karen thought was destruction became an accidental masterpiece. I stood on my porch one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and orange, thinking, sometimes karma has a funny way of working. Karen's drama brought the neighborhood together, and my garage? It became a symbol of resilience. So yeah, you can imagine how satisfying it was when Karen tried to demand compensation for the paint she ruined. "You're joking, right?" I laughed, shaking my head. Karma had flipped the script, and it wasn't about to let her off easy. And now? Well, Karen's been a little quieter lately. No more raids, no more crazy accusations. Maybe she's learned something, or maybe she's just regrouping. Either way, I'm ready for whatever comes next, because after surviving Karen, nothing scares me anymore. But just when I thought the dust had settled, Karen wasn't ready to back down. Nope. A week later, I got a letter from her lawyer. A lawyer threatening a lawsuit for defamation and harassment. Can you believe that? After trashing my garage and fainting on my driveway, she wanted to drag me through court? I laughed so hard I almost spilled my coffee. The whole neighborhood caught wind of the ridiculous lawsuit threat. People started rallying around my neighbors I barely knew were offering support, sharing their own Karen horror stories, and even posting videos exposing her meltdown. Social media exploded. The local news picked it up. Karen, the HOA tyrant, became the town joke overnight. The best part? Her evidence was a shaky video she'd taken during her garage raid, where she misidentified my power tools as dangerous equipment and paint cans as chemical weapons. It was like watching a bad B-movie, only real. Even her own lawyer must have rolled their eyes at that one. I didn't want to waste time on petty drama, but I knew I had to protect myself. So I hired a lawyer, and guess what? They advised me to countersue for vandalism and harassment. Now Karen was in a legal mess deeper than her wildest HOA fantasies. Court dates were set, depositions taken, and the entire community watched with bated breath. Finally, during one hearing, the judge, who I swear must have had a lifetime supply of patience, looked directly at Karen and said, "Ma'am, your actions caused unnecessary distress and property damage. This behavior will not be tolerated." Karen's face turned redder than the paint spilled on my driveway. That's when the slow unraveling truly began. She lost her HOA presidency, was fined for damaging private property, and had to publicly apologize during a town meeting. And yes, the apology? It was as awkward and insincere as you'd expect, but hey, I'll take what I can get. In the end, I rebuilt my garage better than ever, added extra shelves, organized everything with a new system, and even set up a small camera just in case Karen, or any other Karen, decided to play sheriff again. The garage became more than a workspace. It was a symbol of standing up for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against you. Looking back, the whole ordeal was exhausting and infuriating, but honestly, it taught me something important. Sometimes, people like Karen thrive on fear and control, but when their mask slips, the truth shines through. And when that happens, karma doesn't just knock on the door, it kicks it wide open. So, if you ever find yourself tangled in your own HOA nightmare or facing a Karen who thinks they're above the law, remember this story. Stand your ground, document everything, and don't let anyone gaslight you. Justice can be messy, but it's always worth fighting for. Thanks for sticking with me through this wild ride. If you want to hear more crazy HOA stories, neighborhood drama, and lessons learned the hard way, hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. And if Karen thinks a lawsuit will scare me, well, that just makes this story even better.